Brian, are you gonna take roll call? Okay.
Okay, at this time here, first of all, I'm gonna point out the exits, fire exits are to your rear. The exits to my rear take you into the building, so there only is 2 fire exits here. At this time here, I'd like to have a roll call call.
I can do it.
Okay, thank you very much.
I don't know if there's a specific order, so I will just go. Robert Crow,
Yeah,
Denise DeGrade,
Here.
Jean Costello,
Here.
Virginia Susi,
Here.
Irene Drew,
Here.
John D'Onofrio,
Here.
Russ Lackalade.
Here.
let the record reflect that we have the appropriate number of members to conduct business. Okay, at this here, at time here, I'd like to convene as the Council Zoning Board of Appeals. At this time here, we have mentioned that we would vote on the, of the appeal.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I do think that first step, you need to have a motion and a vote to add matter to the agenda, correct?
Yes.
Okay, we want to add the WED wind farm
Solar appeal
solar appeal to the agenda for tonight.
for the purpose of rescheduling.
For the purpose, okay.
Continuing, for purpose of continuing the hearing and rescheduling.
Okay. And I'm going to let the solicitor explain the reason why.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Involves kind of the interplay of 2 statutes that we're dealing with. The first being the Open Meetings Act and the second being the town ordinances. Open Meetings Act requires that a change in the agenda be recorded 48 hours in advance. The town ordinances require that you issue a decision on the appeal, the WED appeal, within 10 days after the public hearing is closed, and the public hearing was closed on Monday. At the time when the public hearing was closed, the board asked for additional time because of it was a voluminous record, and they wanted to have some time to sift through the record. Mr. Wagner quite properly brought up the concern about the Open Meetings Act and whether if we rescheduled till tonight, there would be sufficient time. I, at that point, thought that it fit under an exception because of the tight time frame we had to deal with. As it turns out, we looked at the, in terms of that exception, you needed to amend the agenda as soon as possible. It turns out that the Secretary of State's website wouldn't take the amended agenda after a 48-hour window had closed. Mr. Wagner and I looked at the law on this more closely with a little more time, and we think the safest way to satisfy both statutes, the time requirements of both statutes, is to have it continued to a date early next week. Obviously within the 10-day period, but with sufficient time for the planning department to amend the agenda and give 48 hours notice. I've spoken to the attorney, there was an attorney for objectors, and I've spoken to the attorney for the applicant. They've voiced no objection to this procedure. So that's kind of the legal background for why we are recommending at this point that you simply move to continue it to a date next week.
Okay, so at this time here, if I understand it correctly, I need a motion to continue this to the date of Wednesday, which is,
Did we have a motion and a vote to amend the agenda?
Mr. President.
we have a motion to,
So moved.
okay. Now, the date,
We got to vote to put it on the agenda.
that's what I'm thinking, but I'm trying to
And the
pick a
date is,
date.
oh, try to get together, okay, that's cool.
You know, put
No,
a date.
I think you should do 2 separate votes. First, a motion and a vote to amend the agenda, then a motion and a vote to continue and reschedule.
Okay, a motion and a vote to put it on the agenda.
For this evening.
this evening, yes.
for this evening.
And
We
then-
can't
then-
talk about it if it's not on the agenda, right?
And then move to continue that item to a date at some point early next week.
You don't wanna put it on for tonight's meeting,
We just need to amend the agenda to,
amend tonight's agenda.
amend tonight's agenda so that for the,
To the
solely for
date.
the purposes of continuing it to next week.
No,
But I
We-
thought you couldn't vote on
we-
an amended agenda item. By state law, you can't make a vote on an agenda item that you add.
Well, we're amending it for tonight just to move the substantive part of the meeting.
Do we have to vote to move the meeting? 'Cause I don't think you can do that.
Well, you can continue it to the next agenda, next.
So you wanna continue it, or you wanna move it?
Well,
We
just
need-
for clarification, when we left Monday night, we closed the public portion of the meeting, and we were continuing initially to tonight, so now we want to continue to next week.
That's correct.
correct, but we need two separate votes. First, because WED is not currently on tonight's agenda,
So we need a vote. to
we
put it on
need
the
a motion and a vote to add it to tonight's
I'll make a
agenda.
motion to add WED to tonight's agenda.
Okay, I have a motion,
Second,
I have a second.
Second.
The people who will only be able to vote aye or nay are the ones that are hearing this. John,
Aye.
chair votes aye. Jenny?
Aye.
Jean? Russ? Okay, nays, there's no nays, ayes have it,
It's on the agenda.
it's on the agenda. Okay, now, at this time here, we wish to, I need a motion to,
Continue and
Continue.
reschedule.
Mr. Chairman, I made a motion to continue the WED hearing to a date next week, and I'm thinking it's gonna be Wednesday. Tuesday or Wednesday we talked
At
about.
6 o'clock, is that
thought it
okay
was
with
Tuesday.
each and every Russ, is that date good for you?
yes.
That would be, Wednesday is what's the date on
May
that?
9th.
May 9th.
May 9th, okay. Jean,
Yes.
Jenny?
I hope so.
It works for me, Mr. Chairman, yes.
Okay, I also, all right, now, do we want to come earlier than 6 o'clock? Or is 6 o'clock sufficient?
I believe 6 o'clock should be sufficient. The only thing that will be on that agenda are whatever limit deliberations you still need to have, and then a vote. And will be no other matters on the agenda.
All right, do the board members feel comfortable meeting at 6 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the time, May 9th at 6 o'clock.
And it will be here?
Uh,
No,
I-
it's in the
I have
annex.
to go to,
No, I think because I don't know who is in this room at that time, we should schedule it for the annex across the street. And that way I know we have no conflict.
okay, so it will be in the annex, across the street, not here, May 9th at 6 o'clock. All right, so that's the, a motion, and it's been seconded by, John made the motion, and,
Second.
second, okay, Jane, okay, all those in favor, I'm gonna do a roll call, John, you in favor?
Yes, aye.
I also am in favor, Jenny?
Yep.
Yep.
Jane?
Yes.
Russ? Okay.
I was just asked that we should probably clarify the street address for the annex is 1675 Flat River Road.
1675 Flat River Road, May 9th at 6 o'clock. Okay, at this time here, I'd like to adjourn the Appeals Board, Coventry Board of Review of Appeals, and convene into Coventry Solar Farm, 5 Flat River Road. Okay, this applicant we have in front.
Issue, from what I understand, I was not at the meeting. So that matter is being continued to June. So the development, Kai Lee, location is Neck Hill Road, Assessors Plat 10, Lot 14. The zone is general business. To demolish the existing building and construct a proposed retail store. Relief 10 feet is required.
Is the attorney here?
Good evening.
Are you gonna give testimony, sir?
I am
Please just give your full name and address for the record.
Attorney Thomas Cronin, 1070 Main Street, Coventry, Rhode Island.
Okay. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth on this board?
I do. I would like to just comment and correct one item on the agenda. When we filed for relief, from the height of the sign, and somehow that translated to the height of the building on the agenda. So we have a couple of variances pending before you tonight with regard to signs, and one of them was that it was proposed to be 21 feet tall when only 20 is allowed. And actually, at planning, we agreed to lower that to 20, so that wouldn't be an issue before you anyway. But the height of the building is actually within the limits. So that's just probably my application could have been clearer on that point, and I just wanted to clarify that before I started.
Yeah, and the planning staff will concur with that, so,
Okay, so you can go. All
yeah.
right.
So my apologies for the confusion, and I guess I should say that the height of the sign is no longer an issue at planning. We conceded to, once we found out that it was a 1 foot difference, we agreed to lower it by 1 foot. So I'm here for Zaremba, Program Development, which is seeking to develop a Dollar General store on AP 10, Lot 41, 2011 Nooseneck Hill Road in Coventry. It's the corner of Harkney Hill Road and Nooseneck Hill Road, the old Maple Root Inn. That's what we're talking about. It's Zone GB1. So we have been to planning, as I mentioned to begin. We've been to pre-application and a site walk, and we have received master plan approval, and they did make a positive recommendation to this board on the project and on the variances that we're here to talk to you about tonight. The lot is .83 acres. It's a pre-existing non-conforming lot of record. The proposed Dollar General store is a freestanding building. The current building shown in this aerial view will be deconstructed, demolished. It's going to be a new building. The new building's just shy of 7,500 square feet, 7,489 square feet. So in the process with planning and some initial contacts with the Rhode Island Department of Transportation, there have been some pretty significant changes to this proposal over the last few months. It was originally, the store was going to be set, if you look at this map, all the way to the back left-hand corner, as far away from the intersection as we could get it. That was causing some traffic concerns. Both the DOT and the planning board had concerns with that design. The DOT, because they wanted to move those entrances as far away from the intersection at Harkney Hill Road and Nooseneck Hill Road as they could possibly get them on the property. And the planning board, because in our trailer truck delivery plan, there was going to be the necessity that the trailer truck back up on the property. And decent-sized truck, they had some concerns about that. So what you see before you here tonight is the result of the addressing those concerns. The store has been moved forward to more in the center of the lot. The traffic pattern, as you can see, now goes around the store, kind of the long way, if you can have the long way on a .83 acre lot. But this will allow the traffic entrances to be as far away from the entrances to Harkney Hill Road and Nooseneck Hill Road as physically possible on this lot. It will also allow the trailer truck deliveries to enter off at Harkney Hill Road and exit back onto Nooseneck Hill Road back towards Route 95. So many of the discussions that we're here to have with you tonight result from these changes that we've made to satisfy the traffic and safety concerns. This property, as you know, is located on a busy intersection. Although the hayfield is directly above the depiction shown, Ocean State Credit Union, Coventry Lumber across Route 3 there, and there's the light controlling the entrance to Harkney Hill Road. So as a result of the redesign, we have we show 30 parking spaces where 38 are required. The The end user, Dollar General, assures us that that's plenty for the store. This is not the type of store that'll have surge use. You know, people come and go throughout the day. It's not like a breakfast place or a dinner place or anything else, any other thing where everybody shows up at the same time of day. People come and go throughout the day. 30 spots more than fits their need for this that they consider to be their small store. We are also asking for a side setback relief along the southern boundary. So if you take a look at this depiction, the bottom here of this property, the parking spaces and the dumpster enclosure are within the 10-foot setback. So each parking spot has to be 18 feet long pursuant to the code, has to be 24 feet in the aisle, and as a result of that, we came up a little short. So the encroachment or the setback relief that we're asking for is for those parking spaces that go along the bottom of that depiction as well as the dumpster enclosure. There won't be anything physically built in that setback other than the enclosure for the dumpster. The other items in the setback would be the end of those parking spaces. The property directly below in this depiction belongs to Mr. Ionati, who's recently passed, but it's vacant and for sale. There's no current use of that property. The site does have public water, but an OWTS septic system is required, and that has been placed in a proposed grassy area closest to the intersection, the far upper right-hand corner as you look at this depiction. So that's going to leave that area clean and flat to improve the views at the intersection. This property is in the Tioga Village Overlay District, and you can see from the designs that we've submitted in our package, there have been considerable cosmetic changes made to the exterior of a building from what you would encounter at other Dollar General stores in different areas. It has some visual interest, the peak. I don't know if it's actual clapboard siding, but it's supposed to look like clapboard siding. And it has been, the colors have been muted and some white trim. There are style recommendations in the Tioga Overlay District that call for New England style. You know, how you turn a Dollar General store into New England style. This is our best attempt, but it looks significantly better than some of the stores you might see around. Although I probably shouldn't say that. So the utilities for this building, because of the lot size and the restrictions for the area that we've been talking about, all going to be located on the roof, and won't be visible from the front of the building due to that peak and some of the other accoutrements they've added along the roof line. We deal with the parking spaces, the side setback, and the last item that we bring before you tonight is the signage. So there's two sets of signs proposed. As you can see in this depiction on the upper left-hand corner, there's a Dollar General sign in block letters there. So on the building, is 85 square feet is allowed based on the linear frontage of the building. The outline of that sign is approximately 97. If you just count the tops and the bottoms of the letters, it becomes much closer. But that's the sign that's going to be used. It's in that Tioga Overlay District kind of design element. The other sign is a pylon, a street sign. You can see it, the location on the red box on this depiction. So the pylon sign is proposed to be about 97 square feet, and only 48 feet are allowed in the ordinance. The street sign is important for this project because as the traffic is coming off of Route 95 or the people coming from West Greenwich, they're not going to be able to see that sign on the front of the building. The front of the building is actually going to face Coventry. It's going to face Tioga Avenue. So the street sign is for the folks coming off the highway, really, so they know, get left-hand turn lane, make that left and come in on the Harkney Hill side of things as the site is designed. And as you can see in the lower, something I should have mentioned earlier, in the lower section, there'll be a right-hand turn only exit there, what the planning board calls a pork chop. You can't take a left, you only can take a right
On to Newsnack Hill?
onto Newsnack Hill from the
Can't
site.
enter there?
You can enter there, you cannot exit left.
So how do they head, they pull out, how do they go the other direction? They can't go,
Through the
They'd
light
have
at
to get off
Hockney
of
Hill.
Har-
they have to go behind the building, go it that way, behind.
I'm just gonna approach the
Yeah,
building, make
that'd
sure we
helpful.
Yeah,
understand.
you go out Hartney Hills exit.
Go out Hackney Hill.
Okay, I didn't know if that was just reserved for trucks. That was
This would be an
reserved for trucks.
entrance, but this would be an exit
Right turn.
toward the
only.
highway only. You know, this exit would bring you to the light, so you can take a left.
Okay, I thought that was a
And then
truck
we s-
thing, okay.
The planning board has required signage to that effect, you know, so that, I apologize for being away from the microphone. So that when you're in the parking lot, you understand how, you know, how you should exit safely. And the DOT is on board with these concepts as well, as far as the placement of the exit and the flow of the traffic. So these are my requests. I have Todd Hamula here with me tonight from Zaremba. If the board is interested in hearing a little bit more about the Dollar General store itself, or if the board would prefer to ask me questions first about the presentation of the variances requested, however you wish to proceed.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is the sign that is going to be, not on the building, is it going to be bright yellow?
It is proposed to be the colors of Dollar General, which are yellow and brown, dark brown.
In the rendering of the building, it looked like it was like a bluish color, like a bluish green color. The building is not gonna be that color?
The building is going to be grayish green, yes. The sign will have the regular logo of Dollar General.
So in that picture, the letters are yellow.
Right.
Is it gonna be like that on it? It's not gonna be like that?
On the street sign, the letters,
No, on the building sign,
on the building sign is going to be just like that,
okay.
yes.
Right, that was one thing that was discussed considerably during the planning commission meeting. So the letters on the building will be individual, what they call slot channel letters. The sign, however, will be your standard backlit type plexiglass sign.
The one on the street.
Correct.
The street sign, or,
And it's gonna be lit from inside? Is that what you're saying?
yes,
That's my understanding, yeah.
And the letters on the building are not lit up, they're just,
I think they would be lit up.
they're lit up as
Yes.
well? Are they bright yellow?
They are bright yellow.
Not that I mean,
They
guess
are,
bright
yes,
yellow,
they are
just
bright
asking.
yellow.
Okay.
Is the pylon sign gonna be animated?
No, static.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Can we go back to the traffic flow direction? Now, I know we're not here to change traffic flow, but I'm just curious, was any thought given? Because right now, somebody parks in the furthest part of that, I guess that's the north, the parking lot. They're going all the way around the building to exit. They have to go north on, if they're going east on, right. They have to go all the way around. So that means cars backing out, cars going through, while cars are backing out. There's a lot of traffic going throughout that parking lot. Was any thought given to put another curb cut onto Hockney Hill Road?
Our original plan had an entrance right here
Yeah,
in the DOT.
too close to the,
They put a
Section.
frowny face on our plan for exactly what you say, Mr. D'Onofrio. Their initial reaction is, this is too close to the intersection. You know, the queue of cars here at this red light is gonna build up past.
sure.
This is their point,
I just had some concerns with all the traffic going throughout that parking lot.
but that is correct. And that, our original proposal was just as you mentioned, but, and that was for the tractor trailer as well. That was where it was proposed that the tractor trailer would enter. That's, you know, it's an issue on a small lot, as we dealt with on the Cumberland Farms development on
Right.
New London Turnpike. We ended up, if you might recall, we ended up moving that building several feet forward so that the tractor trailer trucks could go around the back so that they wouldn't be backing up in the parking lot.
So I'm thinking the curb cuts on that Cumberland Farms are no closer than if you had a curb cut there to the.
About the
intersection.
same, yeah.
Can you tell me how far back, if you're entering off of Nooseneck Hill, making a left into the parking lot, how far back from the traffic signal is that?
I want to make sure I understand which.
So I'm coming from the highway, I'm driving, and I need to make a left into Dollar General, not going to the light. You said I could make a left at,
Going in.
Going in.
how far is that from the traffic light?
I'm gonna have to refer to my plan, I can't read, I can't.
It's hard to see here.
I
It's hard to see. It's
need a
tiny.
magnifying glass to see that, I can't.
By the cornfield, you know, like Carl had to walk it today, one guy didn't want to stop.
Looks to be about 70 feet, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Lapp.
75 feet.
Thank you, Mr. Lafferty.
All right, and my follow-up question is that 2 lanes there, or is the turn lane, does it start back that far?
This is the turn lane right here.
Okay,
It does start back.
it does start back that
Thank
See
you,
the cars,
Tom.
numbers out there, yeah.
far. He apparently has magnifying glasses. You can see it.
Any other questions?
Cheetahs, don't worry.
What time, are there set delivery times for these tractor trailers? Are they gonna be delivering throughout the day when customers are there? Are they gonna deliver early in the morning,
Scheduled in the morning,
scheduled in the morning?
that's right,
Prior to business hours, or?
right.
And what are the hours of operation? This part?
If you don't mind, Mr. D'Onofrio, I'll bring up Mr. Hamula and answer these questions.
I'm gonna ask you to give your full name and address, please.
Sure. My name is Todd Hamula. My address is 14600 Detroit Avenue, Lakewood, Ohio.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you to raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth in front of this board?
I do.
Thank you.
So just a real quick correction, the delivery truck, it's one truck a week, and it will come during the business hours. No idea whether it's gonna be the morning or the afternoon or the middle of the day, but it depends upon kind of the stores, and as they add stores in this area, then it kind of will fluctuate. The hours of business are 8 to 10, Monday through Sunday. So the peak hour usually on commutes, on going to work usually occurs what, like 6, 7, maybe 8 o'clock, it starts to funnel down, so the store comes online at 8 o'clock. And then, of course, it closes at 10 o'clock, which is very nice, typically when we're abutting neighborhoods, because it's very respectful from that standpoint, where the parking lot light fixtures kind of shut off, and so it's not open very, very late. Just to answer a couple of questions as it relates to traffic. So other than maybe the first couple of weeks or first month when the store is open and it's new and everybody wants to go to a new store and see what it's like and check it out, they generally have maybe 5 to 10 customers in the store at any one time. The maximum shift will have 3 employees, typically 1 or 2. So the parking lot for 30 parking spaces, in our opinion, is over-designed, but we're meeting requirements so that we have for that what if, that just in case. So we don't see traffic flow on the site really being a big problem for this user, just because of how the consumer will shop this store. It will shop it during the day as cars are on the road. So when more cars are on the road, you'll have more people in the store. When it's less, you won't have as many in the store. That's just the kind of the reality of how the operation works.
You'd probably see a little more of an uptick around the holidays, I'm imagining.
Sure.
Stuffers or whatnot.
Yep. It'll function as a convenience store for the homes that are behind the site. I know Dollar is in the name. Dollar General is a relatively newer retailer in Rhode Island. We are building stores, adding stores one at a time. Woonsocket, we have one in Cranston about to come online, West Warwick. But they're a convenience store retailer, and they have a lot of name brand products in there. You know, Tide laundry detergent. They have milk and eggs and freezer food and fresh food, not fresh food, but refrigerated food. they're not a dollar store. So that's kind of the misnomer with Dollar General. Dollar Tree, which you do have in the community, is the dollar store. This concept is a little similar to a Family Dollar. Family Dollar was purchased by Dollar Tree, so I think some of the goods are, and marketing and materials are kind of crossing over. But it's a very nice concept, been around since the 50s, and that's why the name of the word dollar in the store. I've been hard at work at this site for quite a bit of time. I know that it's not a pleasant looking site, and we're anxious, obviously, to build this store. And we think that the architecture that we've designed will look very unique from other Dollar Generals, really in Rhode Island, but also in kind of the New England part of the country. We build a lot of stores in Vermont, in New Hampshire, Maine, for Dollar General, and this is a unique looking store. The siding materials, it is hardy board, so it's a cement resident, like a siding. So it looks just like house siding, but except for it's cement, so it'll last, so it'll be more maintenance-free like Trek decking. And yes, obviously the variances that we're asking tonight, the planning board were in full support of those, and we're obviously asking for your support of those too. The one thing as it relates to the signage, we think the building signage really directs itself to the town. We were talking about this before the meeting. So really, as you're coming from the town towards the store, you're going to see that sign. So the sign that's on the road is larger, and that's really to help as you're coming off the highway. And part of the 50% of this business, that customers that come in, they've cited it, are really from people that are passing by the site. The other 50% are from people that go to the store because they want to go to the store. They're leaving their house, their business, and they're going directly to Dollar General. So that road sign is really actually very important for them, just to identify with the motorists that are on the road. And it's to capture those that are coming from the highway.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question? You're proposing a sign that's double what? Do you have any research as to why it has to be so big?
Well, because of the distance of where you're coming off of the highway and you're making your way down the road, as you're getting closer to the site, especially in the evening hours when everybody's returning home, that left turn lane does stack up, which is one of the reasons why the DOT is requiring that we restrict the lefts out, because they know that during, I think, probably that hour of the day, that lane is going to be stacked up. So if you don't recognize that the store is on the site, you'll pass right by. You won't even get in the lane, and then you go by the intersection and you'll U-turn somewhere down there and come back. We're trying to avoid that activity from happening, where a motorist passes it up and then has to make a U-turn and come
Do you
back.
have anything that says that it has to be 97 square feet in order for a motorist to recognize it?
I don't have any studies to present to you as it relates to that now.
Okay. Just bigger the better, right?
Well, they have a couple of different size signs. They've built, obviously, different ground signs up to larger signs like this. If they're closer to a highway, they have larger signs there. This is not their largest, it's not their smallest sign either.
Do they have standard sizes for the Dollar General?
They do, yes,
Or
they
what
do.
are the different sizes?
So they have another size sign that is, it's 50 square feet, so it's 5 by 10.
Yeah.
So I always like to think of the dimensions as far as things that I can touch and feel. So like a sheet of plywood, it's a little bit bigger, right, than a sheet of plywood. So this is, to me, this is kind of 2 sheets of plywood that are kind of end to end. That's the size of sign that I'm thinking about, just a couple feet taller. And then, of course, they've got smaller ground signs. They've got one that's a 4 by 8, so it's a 32 square foot sign.
So there is a 50% sign.
We certainly could comply and get it down to the size that would be very close. I think it's 48 square feet that would meet the code. We're asking for relief of that tonight based upon the traffic activity and trying to catch the motorists before they zip past the store.
How high in the air is it?
It's 20 feet.
20 feet.
See, what happens with signage is, I kind of know something about this. My father was a sign painter, and he used to paint signs on the ground, and they always look huge on the ground. But when you put them up in 20 feet in the air, that sign no longer looks big. It really doesn't.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with
safety reasons, I think, to know ahead of time so that you can get into that turn lane.
Right.
Because you approach that pretty quickly once you get off the highway.
And that's, my reasoning is actually it's a reality of what happens if you, I mean, I do it all the time. I'm looking for something and there it is, right? So then you have to U-turn and come back. It's just it's another visual. The yellow does help. I heard the yellow does help.
Sorry.
Yeah. We did make a concession, I think, at the planning board that the sign on the building, instead of it being the box sign, which is shown here, it's the channel letters, which they're more costly, but they're more fancier looking. And
Look nice.
they do look nice and they complement the building, I think. The building was actually designed with that size sign, so I'm frustrated as a builder as I'm driving around and I see a tiny sign on a building and I go, oh, they made them go to a small sign. It just, when you build a retail building, the sign is actually part of the architecture. And when I see retail buildings go up and we're driving with the family and we're like, well, what's that gonna be? Well, wait till the sign goes up and it's like, it feels good now that the sign's hanging on the building.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the actual business? When you said convenience store, I'm picturing Cumberland Farms, which is just right down the road, I mean, practically in visual distance from this. So what type of things? I mean, are you gonna sell coffee? Are people gonna be there? I mean, because that's a busy intersection and traffic coming in and out, in the morning for coffee.
So no coffee.
No coffee.
So it's strictly, if you can, it's a poor example, but I'm just gonna, the types of merchandise in a Target or a Walmart in a much smaller scale. I know I heard a cringe over here, but.
So like dry goods.
So, yeah, so you can go in there and you can buy pet food, you can get diapers, you can get milk, you can get eggs, you can get school supplies. They will have an aisle dedicated for some clothing items. They'll have seasonal goods, so they'll have the Adirondack chairs coming out now. In the winter, they'll have salt. They'll have things like that. They have hair supply, beauty goods. So it's got little, maybe CVS or Drug Mart, or not Drug Mart, CVS and Rite Aid might be a better example because they have a lot of those goods in those stores as well.
Yeah.
But it won't have the coffee. It won't have the fresh stuff. Yeah,
Okay.
like a Cumberland
So not
Farms.
like really convenience foods other than like milk and eggs and.
Yeah, it'll have deli
Refrigerated.
meat that'll be in the prepackaged deli meat.
Bread?
It'll have bread, yes. Yep. About 25 to 30% of the store is devoted to food.
Okay.
The other 70% is devoted to, general merchandise. You can go in there and you can buy a fan, for your desk. You can buy a small coffee maker. So it literally has a lot of goods and merchandise in there that you won't find at a Cumberland Farms for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Plus, I think a Cumberland Farms might be closer to 3,000 square foot, so this is a little double that footprint, so they can have different additional SKU items in there.
Okay. Do you think that your business would have a negative impact on a business like Cumberland Farms, or you really think that the goods are kind of vastly different?
Well, I look at the Cumberland Farms as they're what brings them in the store is the gas, right? You go there for the gas and then you go in the store. They want you to come in the store. This one here, they don't have anything to offer other than they have competitive prices and they have a lot of various different goods and merchandise in there that you as a consumer need. Plus they, like you mentioned, during that morning rush, they're open and they've got those convenience items where this store is. So it's a different. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, closer than 10 feet, 'cause that's what we're really here to talk about, the variances. The way the store's laid out, I got a feeling that most of the cars, that's gonna kind of be an overflow area more than anything else. I don't think that's gonna be the primary parking down the bottom of the screen there,
Correct.
just because of door for the building. So I don't think I'm that concerned that it's within 10 feet. Am I right in making that assumption?
You're right. I mean, we designed so that, it doesn't work. So the parking lot in front of the store, that's where everybody's going to park because that's right by the front door. The doors are centered in the middle of the building. Parking on the side, so those spaces closest to the dumpster will certainly be for employees to park. But customers are gonna funnel, they're gonna park in the front. Could they park down on the side there in the first, 4 or 5? Of course, they could.
And I see you have buffering. Is a tree, what kind of buffering are you gonna have there between the road and parking lot?
Yes, we've landscaped it so that we can buffer those parking spaces. Granted, the lot today is vacant, but, something there one day might occur, and so there'll be landscaping that'll there to buffer. And certainly, my guess is it'll probably be something commercial, similar to this, so you'll have, maybe parking on parking that'll be adjacent to each other, and you'll have a landscaping strip between the two.
Yeah, I don't see that as much of an issue.
No, I don't know.
We originally had the curb cut on Harkney Hill where you talked about it before on that parking lot, but that was much too close. And of course, the building you couldn't circulate around it. We had it closer to the dumpster, the back corner, so then that parking was up on the top. So we've really kind of had to do a little flip here with the building at the request of the DOT and then working with the planning board.
If somebody's on the side lot, basically at the front of the building, can they drive around the top part of that building to get to the exit? Or they have to come around?
No, ma'am. There's a sidewalk. You can see actually we've stubbed it a little bit further to the north so that it'll be a raised, like a curb sidewalk. And then that's all landscaped on the top of the building, on the north side of the building.
So you won't be able to drive along that top, you have to come around this way?
Correct.
Got it.
Okay, now your trash, you've got a trash container area?
Yeah, dumpster right there.
On the bottom of the
So
building.
that's
By
gonna
the
be
parking
outside.
spots.
That'll be private. It'll be screened. It'll be gated. And it's kind of in that best part of the site. It's in the back corner of the site.
Okay, your utilities are all gonna be underneath the ground, going to it,
Correct.
so.
Correct.
Are you gonna sell propane?
They probably will sell propane.
And where would the propane be stored, inside or outside?
Well, I think that they're required, I think that that's something you
Outside.
can't
So
have
where-
out
so
inside.
Where would it be? That,
If they cannot put it adjacent to the door,
in the front of the store?
right, then they will locate it maybe on the side or maybe by the dumpster enclosure, but yes, that's
Do you historically swap tanks, or do you fill on site? If you were gonna use.
this is strictly retail, so they would just do a swap. So they would,
That's completely different. yeah.
it would have, they'd have a third party that would maintain
They
it.
could store them in bins in the front
He's
front
hungry,
of the
doesn't he?
building. It's a whole different code.
Okay, and the variance, it's, by the planning board and yourself, you've discussed the, being close on the side lot line. I believe it's the least relief necessary.
I would agree.
And I think you've worked very well with the planning department and the DOT in order to arrange the building and the parking for the trucks coming in and out, and for your customers to come in and out. And that corner, I agree, where the signage is going, that's gonna be all greenery up there?
Correct. Yeah, you're looking at the landscape plan now, and that area close to the corner, there's all landscape where the sign would be placed. And then the septic system is gonna be in the lawn area.
Okay, I believe you've done a nice setup for it, and both you and the planning board have done a lot of work to make this work out.
Yeah, I think just to get it on the record, I don't see where this project will yield any beneficial use if we approve it. And,
Wait a minute.
What did
well,
you-
it says
I was gonna say, what did
it
you
cannot
just-
yield any beneficial use. It's not making it so that it's taken away a use, basically. I'm not saying this right. I'll read it from the ordinance, so it makes it easier. In granting a use variance, the subject land or structure cannot yield any beneficial use if it's required to conform to the provision. So we're not making, by conforming to this, we're not taking anything away from him. He can still do what he has to do.
Okay.
Okay, I guess that's a better way of wording. It's illegal speak.
Yeah.
So, and if we don't grant this, it would be more than a mere inconvenience to the
I
applicant.
agree.
So,
Yes.
Absolutely.
I think that's a true finding of fact.
It's great to bring business into town.
Exactly.
it's a weird way to word that. It's like an oxymoron. It's like,
Your buffer, and your landscaping is on
it's
the,
double
actually,
speak.
two
Well,
sides.
they can't.
Can't take away use by.
Correct. Yeah, on the rear and on the south side of the site. And we're adding trees on the north side of the building there, so over time, those will grow and they'll be very complementary with the building.
But I seen you've kept it far enough back so that the travel of vision is open.
Correct.
Okay. Any other comments or
One question.
variants? Go ahead. You have a question?
Is it only $1?
No,
He said that.
no, no.
Maybe back in 1950, it was only done.
Like the old five and dimes, are they five and dimes?
Yeah, back where I grew up, they're called Benjamin Franklin. I mean,
yeah.
that's kind of the concept of the store back in the day, and obviously the name has survived, and now it's being lumped together with a lot of the other dollar store, and we all know what dollar stores are.
Any other questions? All right, unless you have something else, Mr. Cronin, to present, I'd like to see if there's anybody here who'd like to speak on this application.
Not at the present time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody like to speak on this application, please step up. Either questions for, against, or just a general question. Just give your full name and address.
Sure, it's Lucas Murray, 121 Hill Farm Camp Road. And I would like some information brought into the record.
Okay, can you raise your right hand, please?
I can.
You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth in front of this board?
I do.
Okay.
Is it okay if I approach to hand out some information?
Was it Murphy or Murray?
Murray.
Murray.
Yes, M-U-R-R-A-Y. This will be easy. You just pass it down. There you go. Oh, you see it? You just pass it down.
You have a copy for the solicitor, I mean, for the
Yeah.
attorney?
We gave them a copy, but I think they have enough.
I'm
Mr. Cronin?
I'd also like to note for the record, I'm a registered landscape architect, and I'm also a senior planner for the city of Warwick. So normally I'd put it into the record if we had a stenographer here, but in case of appeal, I'm also testifying as an expert.
Okay, your occupation is what?
So I am a registered landscape architect. I have 20 years of experience in doing site design and also for developments such as this, also for large campus design, and I'm currently serving as a senior planner, much in a similar role as Brian, in all aspects of the planning department. We do have a Dollar General, and I am familiar with Dollar
What
Generals.
department's this?
Warwick,
Okay.
City of Warwick. So, first off, my family always told me to say nice things first. So I want to commend Brian and the planning team for working with Dollar General. Not here tonight, I'm here for a single issue. The first, oh, yeah. Oh. I'm not testifying against, or I actually am testifying in favor of the dimensional variance related to the setback. I've analyzed it myself, I understand the site, I've lived in Coventry my whole life, I went to Coventry High School. Went past the site a million times, I know how derelict it is, it's been 20 years, we all know that. The restaurant's long gone and it was a party store before that. However, I drive by it every day, I have a vested interest in this as a local property owner. And to be honest, my family with 2 kids is probably going to shop here because my wife likes dollar stores. So, however, I believe in being a good community neighbor. And I also believe in the character of our town. And when the overlay district was created, we had a chance to get it right. We had a chance to look at East Greenwich and North Kingstown and some of the things that they do, not getting pushed around by development, and saying, you know, we want something better. We want the look of our town to be better. Because we see the blight down on the eastern side of town where we see pylon signs vacant in dark boxes. And so this was specifically created for the point of not having these dark signs and having these pylons last forever. And we're still dealing with them. And unfortunately, some of this overlay has been ignored a bit on the eastern side of town still. But I believe on Nooseneck Hillside, we have a real chance to get it right. And I'm asking you to do the job of not approving the variance for the signage the pylon sign. Now, there was some testimony here that it was for the highway and the orientation of the building. I'm not going to testify as an expert on the economic impact of that sign, but I can tell you Pool Doctor, Coventry Lumber, Coventry Credit Union, now Ocean State Credit Union, all have monument signs, especially Pool Doctor, which is a retail development that pulls in plenty of people from the highway, and they do just fine. People find it just fine because they know they're going there. They get used to it. I would gain to guess more than 50% are going to be residents going to the store. They're going to be people like myself, families running out to get milk, laundry detergent, and the many things that Dollar General sells, which is all useful stuff and that we could use. But again, this is a neighbor cooperation here. What I don't want is and I understand we can't control content. I'm a planner. But let's be honest, it's a bright yellow sign in the Dollar General format that fits everywhere. And we have one in Warwick on West Shore Road, and it's a standard format. And I commend the architectural enhancements here. However, I missed the master plan meeting where I would have said I would have appreciated the covering of the mechanicals on the side of the building, because that's facing residential on the Wood Estate side. However, as we look at, I gave you some information that takes you through the findings, and I believe that granting a variance tonight would be somewhat arbitrary and capricious because it goes directly against what the sign ordinance says. I highlighted a passage here that is the intent of the sign ordinance, that the appearance of Coventry is marred by excessive number of signs and that the number of distracting signs ought to be reduced in order to minimize the aforementioned effects, which it goes into dialogue about signage in general and the excessiveness of the signage in town. Also, obviously you know the ordinance says 48 square feet, and we're doubling that. And why? We heard testimony, there is no reason for that. It's because we feel that people from the highway will see it better. I can see a sheet of plywood 20 feet in the air, backlit yellow, just fine. And I gain to guess my neighbors can as well. We will know the store is there. It's not going to be hidden. It's right on the road. So to not have an economic impact study lacking that, I would say that there is no real quantifiable reason why you should grant this variance. It's a feeling. It's because it's business as usual. That's what Dollar General does. I want better for our community. I want to stand up and say that we deserve better as a community. Now, what do I think we should have had? A monument sign in keeping with what Ocean State Credit Union, Coventry Lumber, Pool Doctor have all done. Those businesses conformed. Now, I don't know if Coventry Lumber conformed in all respects to the size of the sign, but it's an above average sign. They worked to work with the community to make something nice. And I'm asking for Dollar General to do the same. Ideally, I'd like to see that 20-foot come down to a monument sign. If we can't get that, I'd at least like to see it go down to what is allowed by ordinance, which is the 48. I don't think it serves any beneficial use. And what my fear is that while Dollar General has great intentions for now, we all see what happens. Businesses move out. I took a picture here. I think you can see it on the left side on this screen, but it's automotive. Now, this is on the West Greenwich side, just past where TLC is. But this is what happens years later when the signs go away and a new business takes over. Because now you own it. Now you own a 20-foot pylon sign that somebody else wants to strap a banner to or strap a sign to, and we have no control over content. And so I live here. I'm planning on being here. My kids are young and they go to Western. I'm going to see it 20 years from now. My house value will be affected by it 20 years from now. And while I respect the business owners for the economy they're bringing, the taxes they're bringing, and I want to support them, they may or may not be here in that amount of time. My family has been here a long time. So as a good partner, I'm asking them to reconsider the signage in general. But at a minimum tonight, I'm asking you to deny the variance. Now, on a final point, I'll take you through the findings. And obviously, you all know that we have certain findings we need to do per state law. And I took you through each on what my analysis would be on each of these findings. Obviously, they're claiming hardship. And I would say, no, it's not a hardship. It's a request. There is no hardship on a sign. They would like to have a larger sign, but there really is no hardship. They have no created hardship. They're building a new site. Now, you could say the same for the dimensional variance. However, again, considering the OWTS, site circulation, everything else, there is a hardship. They want to do a business, it is somewhat of a hardship that they've been put into by DOT and by the OWTS. Signage is a completely different story. This isn't a hardship, it's a request. As far as the hardship on the point 2 of the findings, hardship is not the result of any prior action of the applicant. It does not result primarily from the desire of the applicant to realize greater financial gain. It's clearly for financial gain. It's clearly get more people into the store. Now, I don't know if that's even quantifiable, and I doubt it is, that the extra 48 square feet is going to maximize an economic value for them, but it's clearly for financial gain. There is no other purpose here. That the granting request of the variance will not alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the intent of the purpose of the zoning ordinance or the comprehensive plan. I would say that sign goes directly against the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance. We have a special section outlining the appearance of Tioga Avenue and Nooseneck Hill Road specifically to eliminate blight and 20-foot pylon signs. So that goes directly against it in that finding. And keep in mind, you can deny it on any one of these factors. I also go on to cite the individual sections. I won't go into that. The last is the relief granted, the least relief necessary? Well, no, because there's no hardship. And I just go back to that. There is no hardship. This is a request for convenience. If they have an economic impact study that tells me that they can't generate enough traffic and volume in there to support their business, then me as a resident would even consider it. I'm not against development. I'm not against this development. I'm just against having a 20-foot yellow backlit sign representing my community at a major intersection. I think Coventry's better than that. That's all I have.
Yeah, thank you.
Brian, aren't they allowed to have a 20-foot high sign, according to your chart?
Yes, the sign regulations do allow for that. However, the speaker is correct that the overlay district regulations do talk about a lot of, conceptual ideas about this particular location in terms of appearance.
Right.
So it's, yes, it's technically allowed under Article 15, but being in this special overlay district, there are also other aesthetic considerations.
Okay, now looking at the gentleman's signs he presented to us, good sign examples. Township Lumber, I agree with. The Ocean State sign is very non-performance. As you notice, they got a lease sign there. Land, that has not leased out for 10 years. And you cannot see it or notice it. I've had many people call me, ask where that location is, and not find it. It's right across the street from the traffic light. The pool dock, that's correct. I do like that sign. So again, I think this is up to the individual company providing the signs and for them to do it. I think we've already, the planning board has already worked strongly with them on the sign of the building. I agree with the idea that I'd like to see the sign being very visible, and it is a commercial district. I do not think it's the least amount of relief requested. This is only my opinion on it.
You think it is the least amount?
You think
or
it
not?
is the
Yes,
least?
I think it is.
It is the least amount.
Yeah, I don't think, because signs are a very difficult thing. I think it comes right to the point, right to what it is, you can see it, and I think that's important. And you'd be surprised, when you pay attention now, at the Conference Credit Union, how many people always turn around in that area, and they themselves know it, they can't successfully, and I'm sorry, it's changed the name. You don't realize it, the Ocean State.
But that's
Correct.
that's their operations center.
That's
Yeah.
it.
So the only people that go there are the workers.
Not necessarily,
No.
believe it or not. It's
They-
pretty
But they
heavily
haven't been able to
trafficked.
lease out that other space in that building because of that signage. I have had people look at it. I told them, geez, a good spot here. They'd say to me, where is it again? I said, it's right across from Hudson Hill Road.
Well, I mean, that's why they make GPS, but,
You know,
Brian, can you explain a little bit more about this overlay district? Just so I'm clear.
The special planning overlay district is found in Article 5 at Section 530 of the zoning ordinance, and it applies to all development along Tyoke Ave and Nooseneck Hill Road and Sandy Bottom Road. And the stated purpose of the special management district, quote, is to revitalize and develop Tyoke Avenue, Nooseneck Hill Road, and Sandy Bottom Road so as to dramatically improve the functioning and appearance of this arterial corridor, create redevelopment opportunities, and create jobs, as well as enhance the town's economic tax base. And then it goes on into architectural standards, saying that the building's structures, which would include signs, and site layout shall be visually compatible with the traditional historic character of Coventry and the surrounding area, including building materials, scale, which would be height or size, and roof line. And it goes on to detail a number of, aesthetic architectural standards, which, indicates the fact that they're looking to improve the visual aesthetic
Long-term,
of the area.
long-range plans.
Long-term, correct. So while the applicant is allowed, generally, an applicant in one of these zones is allowed to have a 20-foot tall sign with a maximum of 48 square feet. In this particular area, whatever he's proposing also needs to reflect with the aesthetic characteristics of this particular section as well.
Okay, so this is, I had heard in the past, almost like a beautification clause, where it's people who, when this was put in, it's long-term so that we don't have the, 50 different kinds of signs all along the main corridors in town.
Well, I haven't been here long enough to be able to, testify directly to the express intent that went into creating this. However, I have been here long enough to hear people despair about the visual aesthetic of some of the main arterial corridors
Yeah.
in the town. So my understanding is that the intent behind this was to try and improve some of those conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have another comment. Now, the proposed Dollar General sign, is that the proposed or is that
No,
just
no, no, no,
general?
this is Mr. Murray's.
That's Mr. Murray's.
Conceptual idea of something that could be
And
instead
I
of
think
this.
he's correct.
Instead of this.
And I do like the sign, the proposal we came up with. I don't know if that's something that you, Brian, can work with the dollar store and maybe do something like that. The straight, standing dollar signs, to me, looks like,
I would, if I could say
Yep.
something. I think they've done a great job in designing the building
right.
to fit in with the area. And I do believe that the 20-foot yellow sign detracts from the aesthetics of the building itself. So it's like a contradiction in terms. We got a nice building, designed well, colored well, and then we do the yellow sign 20 feet high. It's a contradiction in terms.
Yeah, I also want to comment on something Mr. Murray said that makes a lot of sense. You're making a sign visible for people coming from the highway. People aren't going to be coming from Connecticut to go to Dollar General in Coventry. It's going to be people that live in Coventry in the area that I'm using to store, and they're going to know where it is. Within a week, they're going to know where it is. So maybe we don't need a sign that's that big you can see from a distance, because people aren't coming from a distance to go to the store. It makes a lot of sense.
But I do like this sign here that is proposed, and I don't know if the gentleman from Dollar General has had the opportunity to take a look at this and say, yeah, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad.
I think that sign actually attracts more business because it
Absolutely.
gives the business a different, it's not Family Dollar, you know, in an old plaza with rusted siding on it. This is a little more, I don't want to use the word upscale, but it's,
Upscale.
but it's a little more, you know,
Well, and I think it's more compatible with the businesses around it. I mean, Coventry Lumber, straight across, they have a beautiful property. You know, there are some other signs in the general area that maybe could use some upgrading, but, you know, I think I had a problem with the bright yellow to begin with.
that's a little.
And I understand that's their logo, so you can't change that. But I do think, you know, given the information that Mr. Murray's brought, that you can make it look a little bit better and actually fit in longer term. I mean, obviously, businesses come and go, but I think they're probably wanting to stay as opposed to go. So, you know, I don't know why you wouldn't put the investment in and make it look a little bit better and, you know, be more compatible with what the plans of the town appear to be.
I stood up to answer Mr. Crow's question with regard to the monument-style sign, and there are not any circumstances under which we could agree to a monument-style sign tonight. That sign would be in close proximity and fall within the DOT setbacks. There's a decent chance that it would block the view of motorists entering that intersection. Certainly, I mean, that would require further study. I don't really know how tall exactly a monument sign is, but I know dropping one in the middle of an intersection is going to raise some issues that I can't just overlook this evening.
You're going exactly where I was gonna go. I was waiting for a turn. The two things I was gonna talk about was, I think the monument sign, it's beautiful. The problem with a monument sign at an intersection like that is you can't see around there unless you're driving a big truck.
Yeah, but
The
There's
other-
a traffic control, though.
What's that?
There's a traffic control there. I mean, they could,
We can't
You gotta
decide
think
that.
about you gotta think about people that are not paying attention. And sight distance is a big thing from the public safety view. Somebody comes around the corner and there's a person, even though there's a crosswalk right next to it, you know, we know that people, that's just a suggestion, they're not gonna use the crosswalk. But the second part of it was the DOT would have to sign off on that. And I'm not saying they won't, but historically, if you go up to 102 right now, where they're putting in the roundabout, the DOT has installed these flashing signs at a lot of the major intersections, warning you that there's, you know, to slow down, there's, you know, construction ahead. When you come out of Hocking Hill Road, for instance, you can't see down 102 because the sign goes right out to the sidewalk, or really close to the sidewalk. There's those kind of things, so you kind of have to like stick your nose out to see what's going on. I don't know exactly where this is gonna line up. I mean, I can see that from the picture, it looks pretty nice, and they're obviously, it probably not gonna be a problem, but ultimately, I think DOT's gonna have to weigh in on that. But those are my two concerns from the safety end of it. If you look at, Coventry Lumber's, it's 25, 30 feet off the road.
Yeah, but Russell, if you look at the proposed placement of this sign, on the left-hand side there, the original one, the pylon, is right at the corner.
But it's 20 feet in the air, you can see under it.
Right, but the other one is moved back.
May I speak to that, since I
Yeah.
And this is where I testify as a witness, or expert testimony. Typically, DOT has a cone of vision, and that's what they'll apply. It's like a 45-degree radius, they'll work off of that corner. Because of the orientation of this, we did look at that, and if you see the red dot, unfortunately, I work like everybody else, so I ran into Brian's office. All I was able to do is take a picture of the plan, and this is off a picture in an aerial, so I overlaid it. But you can see the red dot is where the sign currently is proposed. The blue dot would be set back, and it would be obviously set back because we knew that cone of vision was there. Now that could be shifted around, and again, this is something that I wanted to propose a solution. What you see on this image, pull up Google of Dollar General. If you look at their images, We didn't pull this out of air. That's one of their signs that they have at one of their sites. I don't know where it was, but somebody pushed hard enough to make them do a monument sign. And then that proposed location was considering that. So I'm not saying it's not going to require any work. I'm going to go to the planning board meeting, and I'll bring some neighbors to that one as well. Unfortunately, like I said, this one kind of crept up on me. But, you know, as far as the variance is concerned, there's opportunity here. And so what I'm asking for tonight is consideration of that opportunity and denying the variance.
Okay, I'm gonna bring up the gentleman from Dollar General, if you don't mind. Remind me to switch one in. Now, I don't know if you've got a chance to look at these plans, and I don't know where your septic, unfortunately, I think where you got the blue proposal, it looks like where you're gonna have your septic, correct?
Yes, that's correct. I was going to mention that. I mean, the reason the sign is proposed where the red dot is so that it's out of that septic field. And obviously, it's higher in the air so you can see around it. But the area where the blue dot is where we do have septic currently designed. There's not a lot of big green areas on the site to have a septic field. And obviously, the concept to have the septic out in the front was that in the future, and if one day if a sewer line were run down the road, this site could easily tap into a future sanitary main. We were aware of the overlay district when we designed the project, so let's just be very truthful with that. The building is designed in a manner so that it's reflective of, I think, the suggestions, the conceptual suggestions in there, and we did the same thing with the landscape plan. The signage is one where it truly is addressing the road that we have. It's on a busy road. Honestly, I was actually surprised the overlay district applied to this site when we first started this project, because I thought that it was much closer into town where CVS is, where you've actually got this historical feel and the buildings and everything is slowed down and the businesses are closer to the road. So we actually made an initial application without the overlay district in mind, and then I know that the planning staff was getting up to speed, and it was presented to us that actually this site did have to comply with the overlay district. So we step back and we redesign things, but the signage is one where I know Dollar General is. They're very conscious of what it does for their business. The individual that testified is correct. Over half of those that are shop here are going to be from Coventry. But there's a lot more customers that they will pull in from the road, and having a sign out there that can be visible, okay, maybe not from the highway, but as you're traveling down the road, is important. It's crucial. Having a ground sign that is not visible until you're on top of it, and then let's be honest, if there's cars in that left turn lane, you're not even seeing it, and then you're looking over your shoulder and you're seeing the sign on the building. That's the functionality of the sign. So there's a functionality to it, there's a beautification to it as well that I do understand, which is why we try to accommodate that in the landscaping of the site and obviously in the building architecture. If the zoning board doesn't feel that the size of the sign is excessive, I know that Dollar General, while they won't like it, they would comply with a smaller scale sign because they know that it is crucial for them. But we're asking because of the left turn restrictions, how busy it is in the evening hours, to have the additional square footage so that motorists can see it without passing it up. And that's a hardship of, I guess, kind of where the site's located on the arterial and the orientation of the building and what you're seeing. You know, beauty's also in the eye of the beholder as far as what's ugly and what's beautiful, and yellow just might not be a color, unless you're from the city of Pittsburgh.
Oh, that's it. Careful around here.
Right.
Is there, is there a way of dressing the pole up better, with stone around it, brick? I mean, is there a way of making it more like a taller pylon sort of thing rather than just green metal?
The goal of with the pole is to get the sign higher in the air so
Right.
you don't see the pole, right? You try not to.
But they rust, they need maintenance.
I understand, but you're trying to make sure it's almost. It blends in and you see past it.
If you go down Route 2 in Warwick, for example, they've made some efforts, even parts of Coventry, where they dress poles with stonework around, whatever, just to make them look nicer.
I think you run into the same issue, though. If you're gonna put stone around it, you might as well have a different kind of sign, because
Why?
Because it's the whole, it's blocking it, it's making it larger. I agree with Denise's assessment that
How's it making
the
it larger? I'm
sign, I
confused.
feel, it makes the project feel like it fell short. That, I mean, it's a beautiful building. You know, the letters on the building were upgraded. I get the whole branding, I do understand that. But I also live in this town. And to have a bright yellow sign, I mean, I think there's something that could be worked out. And, you know, if where this blue dot is as opposed to where the red dot is, you know, not something that's doable. I mean, there's some green space there. I just, it just feels to me like a very commercial sign,
There's a commercial district.
but it's also it's an overlay district, so it also has the parameters long-term. We want the town to look nice, and people put thought into projecting that into the future, and I think that's part of what we as a board need to consider is what's it's gonna look like 20, 25 years from now. So, and I think if we don't, then we're falling short as well.
What's
Brian,
the-
if you look at Walgreens, they had the exact same problem with the parking and making, you know, like pretty much like this. And they've been able to put a sign on a commercial top corner like this, put it up here, and they've landscaped it with stone underneath. Now, what's been unsuccessful there is they've had automobile access, which is not down to stone. I think this is far enough away, using the original proposed area, that just maybe a little more thought in that landscaping area. I see they got bushes and plants and everything, and I'm sure you could work with General Dollar to make this more aesthetic. But Denise said, you know, everything's been done. I believe you can work with them and make this more pleasing.
I think what you're saying is a compromise here that can be
Yeah,
reached.
that's right, I'm saying it's a compromise can be reached.
And the staff would have no problem with working with Mr. Hamula and Dollar General. They've been very responsive to staff and to the planning commission so far. So if it's a question of some sort of, you know, maybe extending the panel look that's on the store to the sign pylon, or, you know, some other type of facing architectural treatment, you know, we can certainly
I can
look at that
understand they're okay with
possibility.
that technical yellow sign, you know, and that's their branding, I guess you would call it. And, but I would just like to see, I just don't like.
Something a little more aesthetically
Yeah,
pleasing.
Yeah, I just don't like on a, we have a picture of the typical General Dollar sign, that one sticking in the center of a weed, a grass of weed, you know.
Yeah, a big pile of weeds.
Right, I
So
know,
we're asking them
but
to
I
come with something
think
else.
also they're proposing to do something, I'm hoping, a little more pleasing with the plantings and everything else, and maybe stone or something, I don't know. But I'm sure you could come up with something with General
I think we wanna see
Dollar General.
exactly where they're going, you know, and exactly what they're gonna look.
Well, what's in front of us right now is the size of the sign, not what it looks like, you know, it's the size. That's what we're voting on tonight.
Okay,
So, you know, we can, if they want that size, we can put the stipulation that it's gotta be redesigned to be more aesthetically pleasing. But
correct.
if we don't give them the variance, then they can stick the pole in the ground, put a 48 square foot sign on.
But I mean,
He likes this one, he didn't like that one.
So, you know,
He's the one.
you get a pole in the ground with a big sign, a nice looking pole with a big sign, or a pole in the ground with a small sign. That's what we're talking about right now.
but they've testified that they don't want the small sign
If they
because
said they
I,
would do it, if they couldn't do variance. But, you know, what's gonna be best for everybody? I mean, a nice looking pole, a nice landscaped area with a sign people can see, or a pole's gonna be there one way or the other with a small sign.
well, not necessarily, I mean,
No, that's what's being proposed. It is necessarily. They're not,
but what we're asking is for them to consider doing something a little bit different
that's not
that
within our
would.
realm. It's a zoning board. That's not in our area.
That's exactly what they just said.
We're here to talk about the variance on the size of the sign. That's all we're here to talk about tonight. We're not,
We can't redesign it.
yeah, we can't redesign the plan.
Planning mistake.
No, but what you
We can
could
deny the
do,
variance.
what you could do is vote on the relief that's requested as to the area and refer the matter of the aesthetics back to the planning commission for consideration at preliminary,
Correct.
for further consideration at preliminary.
Brian, where did you get this information?
I'm not sure that,
No. I sent it over today. Like I said, I work for a living. Had I had more time, but I will tell you, even being a planner, the public process isn't always so public. Just trying to find the time with kids and stuff. So I created this today,
I
ran
think you did a
around.
great job.
I think it helps.
That said, there's also an option of continuing the matter, kicking it back to planning board, and coming back with a revised sign. I may not be here to contest the size if the aesthetics was much better.
Pass.
They might have a 70-square-foot sign, and, it might be designed much better. I mean, like I said, Coventry Lumber, I don't know if that fits the sign requirements. That's a big sign, but it just looks good. So I think we're worried, the core is aesthetics, not necessarily size. I don't care if it's huge, if it fits the aesthetic of the building. And I forgot to testify about this as well, but I agree. The aesthetic, they've done such a nice job at the building.
Yeah.
And you have this big yellow sign out there. It just doesn't fit. And that's just, you don't need to be an architectural genius to figure that one out.
Does anybody else would like to speak on this application? Sir, let me wait to see if anybody else in the audience would like to speak on this application. Okay, if nobody else would like to speak, sir, please come up.
So just to follow up, let me just go on record and say that we would be willing to work with the planning staff to design some architectural, like maybe the cabinet that goes around the sign so that it's trimmed out. Maybe there's white trim, maybe there's some scallop, like you see over top of a door where there's a little bit of a pediment, so that it's not just a rectangular box. If the zoning board were to grant the size variance that we're requesting.
Yeah, I think you have one on Cape Cod that is something more.
Yeah, so I mean, we certainly work with the sign company, come up with a couple of examples of what that cabinet would look like. Obviously, the signage area is what we're asking for, and we would be agreeable to making it more decorative and more tying back with the building.
Thank you. Any other information on this, or any other questions on this application?
So if we were to approve the variance, would the stipulation be it has to go back to planning? Is that how we would word that?
Just for the sign.
So,
everything
Brian,
else.
according to the recommendation that you just gave us a few minutes
Yeah.
ago, how would we vote on this if we want to?
You would vote on it, as Brian stated earlier, where you approve the variance for the size, with the condition that it be referred to planning for aesthetic review and the preliminary plan process.
correct, for aesthetic review under Article 5,
Okay.
the overlay district,
And that's a stipulation,
Yes.
okay.
correct.
All right, I'm gonna start with Irene, how do you vote on this application?
Always start with me when I have no idea what it is I'm supposed to say. I agree with Brian's idea,
So it's
or
approve stipulation.
I'd like to approve it with stipulations.
Okay, I'm also gonna correct my, suggestion of motion on that, and that I would like to have a roll call vote on that, we vote on this tonight.
I'll make that motion that we vote. this
Second.
way.
Second, all right.
Right. Now we
Irene,
can
you
start
can-
over.
You can vote on this tonight?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, John?
I'll approve with the stipulation.
No, yeah,
Oh,
no,
well, yes, I approve we vote tonight. Yes.
Denise?
We vote tonight.
Chair also approves, do we vote tonight?
Yes.
Jimmy does? Julie? Does. Okay. This time here, I'd like to entertain a motion that we vote on this application to approve or reject with the stipulation that this would go back to planning and the planning department for the review of the aesthetics of the sign.
Did you mean the planning board or the
The
planning?
planning department and
department.
board. I'd like to see them both work on it.
Go back to the planning board?
yes.
And department.
Well, they have to
Why
go
do we
back to
need to go
planning
back to
anyway.
planning?
You have to go back to the planning board
Planning
anyway.
board.
Yeah, so
yes.
just refer it back to the planning board. They'll work with planning staff.
Okay.
Okay. Irene, how do you vote on this application?
Approve with stipulations.
John?
I approve stipulations.
Denise?
Approve with stipulations.
I approve with stipulation. Jenny,
Approve stipulation.
Russ? The full board would have to vote on this tonight. Okay, can we have the next application read into the record? Take this, Jim. Thank you.
The next applicant is Gregory M. Gormley. The location is 28 Pine Tree Road, Assessor's Plat 306, Lot 22. It's located in the RR2 zone. The existing use is a single-family residence. The proposed use is the same with an addition of a garage and additional living space.
Okay, please give your full name and address.
Greg Gormley, 28 Pine Tree Road.
Okay, and you, sir?
Spencer McComb, 7 Thurston Avenue, Newport, Rhode Island.
Okay, and you are?
Architect. Architect?
Okay, and your location, your architect? You're a state registered architect?
I am.
Okay.
Office is at 42 West Main Road, Middletown, Rhode Island.
I'm gonna ask you both to raise your right hand. Swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth in front of this board?
I do.
I do. Okay, explain to me what you'd like to do.
Yeah, you want it? Don't pay attention to the spelling of that name up there.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it's easier to just point to the monitors. What the challenge of this site is, my client Greg here has an issue where he has watercraft vehicles that he uses in Johnson Pond that during the winter, so virtually about 9 months of the year, need to get stored somewhere. And so where they're able to be stored is up on Pine Tree Road. So there's a couple of watercraft vehicles, and then he's got 2 and then more with his family of larger vehicles that need to be housed. So right now what happens is they park on an elevated platform you pull in off of Pine Tree Road. Unlike most houses where the grade is low and the house is above and you walk up a few steps, this is the opposite of that. The house is submerged down the hill toward the pond so that you're parking at almost the second level of the house. And so because of that grade difference and the unique topography of the land, to house the vehicles, one, to do that within, so that they can be taken out of the view of all the neighbors. You can park 2 vehicles in a garage, or a 2-car garage, that is slightly higher so that they can, or Greg can, suspend the watercraft vehicles in the front of the car, try to use that square footage for the most it can be. So there'll be boats that are suspended from the ceiling and the cars will pull in underneath them so that we don't have to make an even bigger garage to house all these things. There's a little bit of room at the end of an average 24-bay garage so that he can have his garbage cans and some other miscellaneous items that we all know and need in a garage. The existing house is fairly small. These were all sort of cottages that were developed. And because of that, there's no basement and there's no attic. So any additional storage that he would have for his family is non-existent. There is a shed on the property for lawn tools and whatnot, life preservers and things. That is packed. So that's why he came to me, and that's why we came up with this plan. And the relief that's necessary is because of how the topography falls away. The garage could not be placed anywhere else, or it would be below the road. The garage needs to be where it is. The garage houses vehicles that currently sit there, so it's really improving the neighborhood from an aesthetic standpoint, is that these vehicles can be housed. And then we come to the point of how that connects to the house. Because you have almost a full grade drop from when you leave your vehicle to where you enter the front of the house, you're going down almost a full story. In inclement weather, when there's snow on the ground, very difficult for my client's older mother who visits quite often, and even other neighborhood and folks, his own family, that are coming in and out of their vehicles down a uncovered stairway. So what the connection between where the garage ends, and there's essentially about a 14 to 12 foot gap between where the house ends now and where this garage, which encloses these vehicles, would be. There's this gap between them. We could leave that totally open, but because we're connecting them, we're leaving it open on the ground level, so that if you look at, maybe go a couple slides forward, if you could. Next one. You'll see down at the bottom there is a spot where that's still open. So although we're incurring lot coverage because of it, on the lower level in a unique design, we've allowed for that to be just open air. So the addition spans over top of the rear of the home, so that on the first level there's still outdoor, so you can still see outside, although you're seeing into this covered area that's on the bottom. So the garage itself is designed so it's slightly taller so that we can fit these watercraft on lifts and then fit 2 cars underneath it. So we're really the least relief necessary for us to get all those things into one spot. I think pretty neat way of handling all this vehicle storage in one small square footage. And then above that, we could have a flat roof, of course, but that wouldn't be in keeping with the neighborhood. So in this case, we have an eave storage above a garage, like most of us have seen or have in our own garages, where there's some sort of peak up there. So in that peak, it's all within the eave. So if you step 3 or 4 feet left or right of the ridge, you'd hit your head. So it's mostly storage, and we've used 2 dormers on either side, one for aesthetics so that it looks a little better architecturally. We have a cupola up there to help the look of the overall addition. And then we have these dormers which allow you to have headroom above there. So the peak and the roof lines of the garage, I feel like, are really necessary. You'd need to have a pitched roof of some sort, and so just making it just tall enough so that you can move around up there. We at first were thinking about additional living space up there, but come to find out it's probably mostly going to be used for storage in that area. And then off the back, maybe if I walk over there I can point it out. The garage level's here. This is all within the roof line, so it's up in this area, so there's pitched roofs going on all over the place. And then this is the connection to the house. You can see where the second floor of the house is, so that you can leave your vehicle, come up a step or 2, and get to here. This little area that's in between the back of the garage and the front of the existing house is really just a connection to get from one point to the other. It's a product of the grade falling away and the distance between that and the front of the house. So it was sort of a necessary thing to have. It's basically like a foyer or an entryway to the house, much more than an actual room. It's just kind of got odd proportions. And you'll see in that section that it's really not the second floor. It doesn't go over that of the garage. It's open, so it's sort of cathedral in that area, so that the roof lines can tie together from one house to the next. And so that's kind of an explanation of how we arrived at this design. It's a unique piece of property. It's very narrow. It's as the planning board brought up, and they supported us on this project. And their comment was, we know that the zoning has changed there over time, and that part, in part, adds to the hardship that we're under, is that basically the buildings are already at their max lot coverage. So any improvements that would happen, size changes, all those things would happen. We are underneath the height of the building is underneath the height restraints. The sides are kept right in line, so we're not asking for relief on those. It's the front setback that we're asking relief for, as well as the lot coverage being increased, obviously, to house this garage. I know there's multiple people here in support of this application, and we have
letters.
we have some letters too.
Okay, now, the present foundation you have. 7% more lot coverage than 20 foot apart. Are you gonna increase that any larger?
It does get larger. Right now, car park area, maybe if you could flip back to the site plan. There's a retaining wall that sits right here.
Correct.
And the backs of sort of modern cars stick out to the back and kind of come into this U-shaped driveway.
Correct.
So we're starting it essentially right at where that retaining wall begins, but we're making it bigger to the back.
You're gonna make it bigger going towards the house.
Toward the house. No closer to the road than essentially the back of where the retaining wall starts. It'll actually pull the cars when they're parked now.
Closer to the house.
Close to the house and not as close to the road.
So you're gonna take that one retaining wall that you have, and you're just gonna fill that right in.
Yeah, it pulls back to here essentially. Just moving this line all the way back to where the existing house sits. And we're transitioning the grade, that's why the elevations and sections kind of maybe help describe it a little better.
Now, where you're not gonna use all that area for parking cars, all right?
No, the cars are gonna be probably the first 24 feet of the garage. There's a small 6-foot section, actually probably more like 5 feet, where Greg can house his garbage and other things, bikes and things that you have in a garage. Then from that point to the house is the connector. Essentially, it's stairways, it's a little bit of room that make the second floor slightly bigger, but it's really not set up or even useful to be any living space. It's more of a connector, which allows someone to leave their vehicle parked at this higher level and walk essentially across the connector to get to the house without going outside. And so by connecting the garage to the house, it avoids this, what would be a sort of awkward looking and feeling 10 to 12 foot gap between the existing house and the back of the garage with no connection really to the street or light or anything. So it just seemed like a better way to connect everything, safer for people who are using it, especially those getting older. And so we just felt like this was a good solution, but it's really driven from the topography of the land. If it was flat, we'd be able to push things around a little bit more, but we
I
can't drag.
like your concept, your design, your idea. As an architect, you've done an excellent job with the walkthrough and the. The only thing that concerns me is the amount of, well, the density. Would you be able to remove the shed that you have there, because you're gonna have this extra storage inside the garage, or you still need to retain the shed?
Well, the shed is gonna be for lawnmowers, things like that you wouldn't store above your garage. You wouldn't
Right.
store it a story above. It's really for things that are supporting what's happening at the waterfront, and also, lawnmowers, weed whackers, things that you really wouldn't keep in your attic of your garage.
Yeah, but when you look at the drawing with the 2 cars in the garage, you have some space between the front of the car and the door going into the family room. So that's the space I think he's talking about.
Right, you can put the lawnmowers
Move your,
on the-
those things into that space.
I know, because you got a hill, you gotta, kind of walk around the lawnmower, but it's not like you're picking it up and putting it over the wall, is where that shed is.
Maybe Greg, he lives there, so he can correct that.
Yeah, if that happened, it kind of would defeat the garage, that extra space, 6 foot of space, is maybe 1/3 the size of the shed. So now I'm back in the situation where I'd have to put the cars back outside or the boats outside to make space for the snow blower, the lawn mowers, the bicycles, so it's kind of like a catch-22 situation.
Where do you park your cars now? in the circular driveway, or like where the proposed garage is gonna go?
So in the summer, the jet skis and boats are here.
Yep.
So this way I could bring, there's four cars basically. There's gonna be 2 lifts inside, where 2 cars could be on both lifts and 2 cars could go underneath, so there wouldn't be any cars out here at all. Right now, there's typically 2 cars here, and 2 or 3 cars here, and a boat right here on the lawn.
My question was, is today, where are your cars parked today?
Right there.
What about, so
Three.
you couple,
1, 2,
There's no garage right
3,
now.
4, 5.
And
Oh,
it-
this,
and it-
I'm sorry, this
There's
is.
not even put a garage in front of the house without variance.
So 2 here,
Can't put a garage in front
You
of the
got
house
5
without
cars
variance.
now?
He's not asking for the variance for the
Yes.
garage in front of the house.
Yes, he is.
He's asking for the
So-
resale and
where the cars parked near the proposed, or actually where the proposed garage is now?
oh, I guess-
Is there gravel, is there concrete, is there asphalt?
it's concrete.
It's concrete now. So, putting the structure up isn't really gonna change the, coverage of the,
It's, well, actually, there's gonna be 2 car lifts inside the garage.
Yep.
So during the winter, the jet skis and boats, which kind of need protection from the elements, will be up near the ceiling, and 2 cars can go
no,
inside.
my,
But the
my-
per-
what-
yeah.
my question was, is today,
Yeah,
if you didn't do anything, the cars are still parking where the garage is gonna go. So if you put the garage in, you're not changing the layout per se of your yard. You're not gonna cover your yard with anything that's, other than a structure that's covered with concrete right now.
right.
The footprint's really not gonna change that.
Exactly.
That's-
It doesn't change dramatically for the pervious, parking now is gonna be,
Very nicely, make the,
Yeah, there's concrete there now too as well, so.
that's already,
section of grass between, that's kind of at a really steep angle, that between the end of where the cars park and his true front door,
Right.
which has pervious. So there is a bit of vegetation that is gonna be covered, but we felt it's very small in comparison to the overall lot.
so the drainage you have now is not gonna change,
No.
am I right?
Yeah, that's right. The drainage is already taken care of.
Everything that you got mapped out here is already
It's
either
already,
concrete or,
it's already, this, let me see, where's the house here? Where the bridge type, that's stamped concrete, and there's a
Yep.
drain right there already.
yep,
So it's been there for
so
years.
that's gonna be exposed to the exterior elements anyway.
Right.
It will, but it'll be covered, so, but
Yeah.
we, essentially, the drainage as it is currently is all set. And so we're gonna be mimicking that
So
with
you
our
don't
new
see any
coverage.
drainage problems whatsoever with the addition?
No.
And you've already had this and lived there for how many years, sir?
14 years now.
14 years, and you've lived in this circumstance, and you haven't seen anything that would make your neighbors, drainage going to your neighbor's property or drain into the pond?
No, because my neighbor here, this is a right-of-way, so there's nobody there. And I have another neighbor here where it's contoured, so
Yeah, I see he was landscaping that today and making that work.
excuse me?
He was landscaping that today and making that work.
Right.
But it did seem like he had to, you know, spend quite a bit, like,
Yeah, they're in the same situation where they've got the steep drop-off.
right.
Yeah. And I've got letters from all the surrounding neighbors where they're all for
No,
it.
that's very important.
Staff report.
And I have a couple with me tonight as well. One neighbor who lives right across the street.
Is the garage like the height of it, because it's gonna be closer to the street? Does it block any neighbor from backing out of their driveways, or?
No, let's see, it's at least 40 feet from the street edge, so, yeah.
All right,
He's got the full U-shaped turnaround that he does today.
good. Okay,
So that's a ways in. It's just over the front setback line, but nowhere near being well off the
not
edge of the
impeding
street.
traffic or
40 feet
anything
off
like-
the edge of the street.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
So it's really neighborhood cosmetics, storage, and safety.
Well, I'd rather look at a garage than look at someone's boats and cars, so.
Yeah. And plus,
I agree
there's
with that.
stairs that come down this side where it had a number of people slip and fall, the stairs are really steep. And the ramp that comes down, when it's just wet, it gets slippery. And Mark can attest to that, till he comes over and feeds my daughter's cats on my trap. And my mother used to do it, she won't do it anymore, she's 83 years old, and
Yeah,
so.
nobody wants to do
Looking
that.
at this here, I believe the hardship is due to the unique characteristics of the land. The hardship in which the applicant is seeking relief, is it the least relief or is it not? That's quite questionable, but looking at what's already been covered on the lot, I don't believe there's gonna be any change to that. Do you, Russ?
No, I don't. That's what I was getting at when I was
Right.
asking that question.
Right. And
There is a small area, if you look at the picture on the right, you can see the small area of green in between the driveway and the existing house. So there is, I think I measured it out at about 300 square feet or something like that, that's
Where are you looking at,
pervious.
Brian?
Just to the left of the, or just to the right of the 60-foot designation, you can see an area of green.
up into the air.
This is the staff, they say it's double.
Yes, but you gotta go there and
This area
see.
in here
Yep.
is actually pervious. You have the house, then a patio area, then the driveway separated by this
Okay.
small, which
Yeah,
I
this
believe
is
is where the walkover they're talking about.
Yeah, it's basically a line of shrubs, some bark mulch, but
It's on a very steep slope because it's transitioning almost a full story in about 10 feet,
The
so,
slopes are over my head, the shrubs are over my head.
yeah,
I mean, and like you said, it's two levels, you're on the second
Yeah.
level.
that's right.
Uh,
So currently, that area drains to his patio,
Right,
which then has a collection system in it, which we're gonna mimic in what we do with the water runoff retention that we come off the drainage.
okay, if this variance was granted, I think the architecture is what is selling me, the way it's set up. I believe it would be an enhancement to the area. I really do, not to deprive any of the neighbors. I think it'd be a great, I do like, I'm gonna compliment you again on your design, so.
Thank you.
Very, very nice. Does anybody else would like to speak on this?
No, that's a good plan.
Nope.
Okay, and then, if the relief was granted, is it the least relief necessary? This is what's tough. I think trying to put everything all on one level so you can walk into the house is very important. No, it's not the least relief, but I think it's the most reasonable relief. So reasonable and least, I don't know. It makes sense, I like the look of it. Can I have some other discussion on this from the board?
Well, I think it is the least, I mean, because otherwise you're gonna have the pitch problem, and it's gonna have to be an open area, and it defeats the purpose of putting the garage there, so, you know, maybe not the true definition of least, but I don't see another way around it, that it's gonna look good and be safe for people who are, you know, walking from one to the other. You don't wanna do it halfway, you wanna complete the project, you wanna make it safe, and I think it is the least relief.
The department rules really, in this case, you don't have a choice of doing it a different way.
We'd love another choice, but this was this was a unique solution to a unique problem.
The land or the structure cannot yield any beneficial use if required to conform to the zoning ordinance. But he's definitely used a beneficial, I mean, he's not gonna be if this was denied, but neither should he be denied because he's got a nice location, keeps the property up, and he wants to improve. So, I think that it's not a reason to deny, because he does have a nice piece of property there, and he is trying to put this addition's probably gonna cost him more than the whole house.
I'm definitely going backwards. As far as the house is worth, I plan on staying there a long time, so.
Obviously, that's true. So I believe that this is, in order for him to achieve his goals, this is the least relief necessary. And he's definitely not doing it for beneficial use. It's a cost. Any other comments on this?
Well, just keep in mind, we're also being asked to vote on a special use permit too, so let's go through the standards for special use. I'll kind of read through them.
Go right ahead, please.
Okay, so for special use permit, you have to satisfy the following standards. A, ingress and egress to the lot. I don't see any issues with ingress or egress, because nothing's really changing there
Right.
as far as waste being used now. Off-street parking isn't affected by this. It might actually improve off-street parking, so that's not an issue. Trash, storage, and delivery areas, they spoke to storing trash inside the new garage, so that's actually beneficial. Utilities, I don't see any issue with utilities here. There's nothing changing. Screening and buffering, we've talked about how aesthetically it's an improvement, and I think we're in line there. Signs and exterior lighting, are there gonna be spotlights in this garage shining off the building towards neighbors' houses or anything?
No.
Okay.
We're gonna put a big yellow sign on the front of it.
Yeah, big yellow sign on a 20-foot pole.
I'm
Can't
gonna
have
have a problem with that.
If you do a blue, we're okay.
Sorry.
Required yards and other open space, where we talked about the characteristics of the land and this being the best fit for what he's trying to do. General compatibility with lots in the same or abutting zones, I think you're okay there. We actually got letters from your neighbors saying that they're okay with this and it's compatible. The use will not result in or create conditions that will exceed the industrial performance standards. That's not an issue here. General compatibility with the Coventry Comprehensive Plan, I think we're okay there. I haven't heard any testimony saying otherwise. And the granting of this special use will not result in conditions inimical to the public health, safety, morals, and welfare. So if you don't put the yellow sign up, I think we're okay. Yeah. So I think so far we haven't heard any testimony that speaks against these standards.
Okay, and then I also like to have the gentleman take a seat and see if there's anybody who'd like to speak on this application. Anybody here like to speak on this application? I'm in favor. Please step up to the podium, sir. And give your full name and address.
Mark Nessett, 31 Pine Tree Road.
Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth on this board?
I do.
And you live where, sir?
31 Pine Tree Road, Coventry, Rhode Island. They're directly across.
That's directly across the street. And you do not believe that this additional structure on this residence would be inconvenience or make any harm to the area?
I don't see an issue. It's covered parking, whereas right now everything's open. And it's not gonna be a problem with the neighbors as far as parking or anything else.
You don't see it being, creating any hazard or anything like
No,
this
sir.
here?
No.
All right, and the appearance of this, you think it'd fit in the neighborhood?
Everything he does is top-notch. It'll be beautiful.
All right, anybody else have any questions for this individual? Okay, I'm gonna ask you to take a seat, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak on this application? Okay. I would like to have a recommendation, we vote on this tonight. Motion?
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Okay, Mr. John, how do you vote on this application?
I approve.
Denise?
Approved.
Chair approves. Jenny? Deny. Russ, how do you vote? Approve? Approved. Okay, application's approved. Okay, next application, please.
The next application, the applicant is, applicants are Brendan and Stephanie Reagan. The property is located at 30 Teakwood Drive West, Assessor's Plat 76, Lot 2. The zone is R20 residential. The existing use is a single-family residence, and the proposed use is the same with a residential addition.
Okay, please give your name and address,
Brendan Regan, 30 Teakwood Drive West.
and your name, lady.
Stephanie Regan, 30 Teakwood Drive West.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you both to raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth in front of this board?
I do.
Okay, please explain to me what you'd like to do.
So we're proposing an addition to the side of our house, which would be a 22 by 22 addition. We're looking for a family room, game room. Currently, it would be currently it's a 35-foot variance. We're requesting a 15-foot variance to go 22 feet from the current foundation.
Okay, just so you know, your house has already been in front of this board with an addition with a variance on the garage. All right, and I am very familiar with the area. I lived 2 houses up the street for many years. Denise's brother actually owned that house. So we do know the very well.
Big size.
I see they put the road in next door.
Yes, they did.
Now,
Yeah.
Has your foundation cracked with the blasting?
No, it didn't.
We've been worried about that.
Yeah.
What is the proposal for that swing? Is the town putting up a developer putting up a wall?
They're putting up a retaining wall, yes.
How high is that retaining wall gonna go?
It's gonna be 10 feet at its peak,
10 feet at its peak.
yes.
So you're still gonna have a down slope to it.
No.
Not really, no, it's pretty level,
It's gonna be level,
yeah.
All right, so that's gonna be 10 feet at the peak. And you're gonna be 15 feet away from it.
Correct.
What is that wall gonna be made out of? Stone?
Yes, it's layered stone, I believe. It's
Is that what
stone.
they're gonna do, Brian?
I don't believe the planning department has seen a design for that retaining wall at this point.
Because that's gonna be very important to keep that up there.
Yeah, no, I've been out to the site, so I understand that, yes, there's gonna need to be a retaining wall, and 10 feet sounds about right from what I've seen out there, so. There's no way they can cut the road through there and bring it down to the grade of the existing roads
Exactly.
without providing support on that side of the property.
All right, now, we're gonna be very tight with 15 feet of it. Now, you can't get us, because of the rock on the other side, you can't get a backhoe back there. You're not gonna be able to get a backhoe back there, you're gonna be able to get it in from the new road. Now, is that the repairs on your septic system? How far is that wall gonna go? Are they gonna be able to have access to the backyard, to that new road?
Like I said, I have not seen plans or designs for the road construction on the extension of Ironwood Drive
I
yet.
don't wanna shoot them in the foot and say, yes, you can do this, but then they can't do septic repairs or anything else because they can't get a machine in the backyard.
Why can't you drive a machine past the
Yeah.
15-foot?
Oh, it's,
I'm just asking a question, I mean,
it's tight. I mean, you're right, it probably could be done, but you're still gonna have.
I'm not debating you, I saw the 15 feet,
Yeah,
machines aren't that wide,
15
but
feet, but,
how long is that wall gonna be, Brian? Oh, you don't know.
no, not with the rocks.
Well, I mean, the side of the property is about 140 feet. There's certainly a lot more material that needs to be removed closer to the street. It will,
Yep.
the retaining
If
wall
he
will
could come up
probably.
from the street and come around, I don't know how far back he owns. If he could use that, to come right up, and I think that would be a reasonable, but I'm just trying to say that I'd like to see it made so he can do that and come around.
What's the distance between your garage and your property line to your?
Behind their house.
13, I believe it's 13.
What's this
That's what
road
it looks
called?
like, but it's weighted, it's kinda weighted up.
Talking right here.
Well, you got that rock over there.
Something down?
Yes.
This was the front of Big's
Yes.
Began at the
I
garage,
remember that, yeah.
okay? They're building on this side.
But is that?
The road.
You know what I mean by coming around
They
the
got the
back?
road down.
the
See
green
right
road
here?
is?
Yes.
And you can go right up there, and then you can do any repairs,
Yeah,
for,
No,
that's
they don't
you
have.
know,
Right there.
you got the above ground swimming pool. you
What's
got
the purpose of the road
everything
to
over
develop in here?
there. Very,
No,
very
this
nice.
is Wardsy's house.
Right, so is that the purpose? So they develop
There's
that?
supposed to be a 45-foot buffer between the end of my property and the next property.
45-foot buffer.
Yeah, that's what Bob Carpenter is planning on.
Is that
I think that's.
45-foot buffer?
Yes.
Between his lot and the next lot, so, is that because that would change
Is this
homes,
going
that was
all the way
R2?
Well, it's,
Because that's where, like, are they putting the road?
I do recall, there is a no-cut buffer around the perimeter of that development going in there. I don't recall off the top of my head exactly the width of it.
It's coming down here, this is all gonna be developed.
Now, what is that, those developments going in, they're going
He's got
1 acre,
woods
2 acres,
behind the
what's going
This is
in?
all fairly back here.
I believe it's a cluster
This is Bobby's house up here.
design, so smaller lots, and I think there's gonna be some open space along the northern,
Years ago.
It usually is.
This is what they're gonna be developing.
the road, I guess I
By
gotta
putting this
go
road
over
in.
this one, see.
They're gonna be developing.
They're gonna leave it and then develop this.
It's already.
So the road is gonna connect
Feel the Playboy Mansion back there.
through down to Luba.
Luba,
Oh,
yep,
wow, okay.
yep.
Something now like,
So it will be a much more heavily traveled road.
This area here, is, I believe,
So it's
as
gonna
open space, if I recall correctly, as well as for some, detention basin. So there is some open area in here, but I believe immediately behind this house, you'll have houses following along each side of the road as it comes through.
But he's gonna have a buffer between him and the houses?
I would have to double check the plans to be sure.
Do you still have the pool?
We do.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there was some woods behind the pool
That's
as
what I'm
well.
saying, yeah.
So, you
You come
know,
right up, I don't know how far do you want past the pool?
I'm not sure what the number is. Yeah, at least 20, I'd say.
At least how much?
20, probably. Can't be exact, I'm not sure.
But that would put you almost down to the, because that goes down the hill quite a bit to the grade of the
Yes,
the new road.
right.
it's so high, because. They could have put it across.
And you believe
This is a key,
by putting up this addition
Yeah.
so it's,
and asking for a 15-foot
pitched.
relief,
Real roof.
it's the least relief
So this is like
you
two
need
full
to do
floors.
this.
I do.
Two full floors.
Storage.
So you're gonna go in with a full
Well,
foundation
you're gonna have
underneath this?
another room,
Yes. Yep.
family.
It looks like it's gonna be a gorgeous addition. I like the architecture that you set up on it. I think it's gonna be an improvement to the area. Any other comments from the board?
I like it. But I like the original too.
Thank you.
I'm sure he'll find a way to get around there.
Was that original to the house, or was that added into the garage?
Yeah, this was added with the garage.
All right, so the roof on the left, it's not a flat roof, right?
No.
All right, it just looks flat in this picture.
Granting this variance, it will not alter the general characteristics of the area. In fact, anything, it'll, of course, make an improvement to the area, and it'll make it very nice.
Is the least relief possible?
For what they're trying to prove, to do. I think he wants to make a recreation area, is that, am I correct?
Family room, yeah, the game room.
So why 2 floors?
Family room downstairs, game room upstairs, just for
We have
for kids.
So a
Well,
playroom
one so
upstairs,
far,
really.
but
One's gonna be a family room downstairs, and then we have a child, so we're gonna have a playroom upstairs for them.
Yeah, and I think aesthetically, I think the 2 stories fits. nicely.
Yeah, definitely.
Uh,
Couldn't have it cut off there, that looks silly.
And I think you couldn't put, looking at the thing, I mean, looking at the structure, you couldn't put it on the opposite side because you only got 7 to 13 feet. So it's
Right.
definitely- And then you have to walk through the garage to get to it. So I don't see anywhere else you could put it. You can't go much out, more out the back because of the septic system.
yes,
Right.
right.
So,
Upstairs, where's the stairway?
yeah, I believe to accomplish your goals, this is the least necessary. Any other comments?
Is there gonna be a stairway in that addition?
No,
So you'll go upstairs, at the front door, the steps go up, and then there was a bedroom either side, bathroom at the top. So you're gonna go through one of the bedrooms?
Yes,
To
it's
get to
gonna-
the upstairs?
it's going to be off the bedroom.
Okay.
Okay, if no board members have any more questions on it, I'm gonna ask you to take a seat and see if there's anybody here that'd like to have a comment on this.
Okay.
Any questions? Anybody here have any questions on this application? For or against, or just any questions at all?
How big is the addition going to be? How many square feet?
The addition is gonna be,
It's 22 by 22, right?
22 by 22.
correct.
I have to do some math.
That's why it's not big for what the trying to do.
It's a little over 400 square feet, right? On each
Any other
level.
questions from the board? Do I have a motion at this time, we vote on this tonight?
No, I'll second it.
Okay. Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Okay, John, how do you vote on this?
I'll approve it.
Denise?
Approve.
I also approve. Jimmy? Russ? Approve. Application's approved. Thank you very much.
Get the sledgehammers out.
Have fun.
Demolition day.
The next 2 applications, I take it, Brian, are being held over to next month?
Again, Mr. Cairo, there was, again, a scheduling issue with the planning commission, and he didn't get his recommendation for the in-law apartment from planning, so he's requested a continuance. BC Property requested a continuance, and the Kyle Parento with the solar installation also requested a continuance. So if the board approves those 3, then we're done.
Okay, at this time, yeah, I'd like to have a motion on those 3 applications.
Dogs?
We have continuance on those to next month. So
Yeah, we did, didn't we?
Made,
Second.
Monday night? I
made
thought you
and
just
seconded
agreed
by,
on
Me.
okay, Jenny. All those in favor say
Or me.
aye.
Rejected it. I said you can keep the photos there, but aye.
Nays, rest of all nays?
I said you can keep the
No,
photos until one
I
guy's
said aye.
looking at it.
Oh, you said
I
aye?
seconded it, but then Jenny did, so.
Brian, do we
John,
have to do
give an eye on
the
that?
Aye, aye,
basic
aye.
property?
Denise?
Aye.
I give an
That's what we
aye.
did.
Okay. Nays? Okay, ayes have it.
What
All right, do we have any other business?
about BC Property?
There was
That
a
was
request to
continued.
continue that.
But do we have to vote to grant the request to continue?
What?
Can I ask you a
Do we have
question?
to
Do we
vote
have
to
to,
grant it?
That's, I
I thought
just
we
asked
decided that we
for a
could vote
motion and
the
a
night of the hearing.
vote
We didn't
to
have to make a
continue the
motion.
last
If we
three
wanted to hold it
matters.
over, we had to make a motion.
Oh, okay, all outstanding matters.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Mr. Crowe had a
Okay, I thought
conflict.
the last,
but-
let's just wait.
All right, so I have a motion to
I
adjourn.
think we heard that Monday. So moved.
Any other business? Oh, we should do election of officers, and it's gotta be on the agenda. You wanna do that for June, July?
Next meeting.
June is looking like a busy month,
It
so,
only takes about 30 seconds to do it, so
okay, I'll be glad to put it on the agenda for June.
thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
I want to be the chaplain.
I'm pretty sure we did.
Keep asking.
Yeah, we did a bunch on Monday night. We had two months of meetings with us. We had to get along with these two meetings. And that went 2 hours. So we got to midnight.
Are we doing it or what?
Next meeting.
Okay, so I have a question.
They said they wanna do it next.
I thought by open meeting laws, if you add an agenda item, you cannot make a vote on that agenda item by state law. The board cannot vote on it. So we made a motion to add to the agenda to hold it for another meeting, then we voted on whether or not to have the meeting.
Yeah, and interestingly, I found a case during all of my, it's not on the exact matter, but it was on a related zoning board matter where they were able to convene for the purpose of voting on a continuance. So,
Okay.
I think that generally applies. You know, we had continued it from one night to tonight to be able to continue it to another night in order to accommodate the 48 hours notice. And also, you know, we still do have to render a decision within 10 days.
Right, and I don't want, when then you're saying, hey, they took a vote to hold a meeting that's not a legal meeting, so now they can't have it, now it's gonna go past the 10 days. That's, I don't want that to happen, because I thought state law says if you add an agenda item to an existing agenda, you can't vote, make any votes on that item.
I understand.
So I don't want them to use that loophole against us.
Well, for scheduling, there's generally an exemption.
There is, that's why I'm asking, so,
Yeah, there's, the scheduling is an exemption for,
okay,
so you can talk.
okay, all right.
So that's okay.
All right, I guess we all voted to adjourn.
Oh, that was the one with,
Yep.
behind Jiffy Lube, Jiffy Lube, that's a big house to make a chiropractor.
What are you taking this up about?
Half the properties in general business are right, and the other half is residential.